Hello, welcome back to Erratic Endeavours, the little part of the internet where I'm documenting my attempts to make myself some hopefully lovely things. And I'm back to drafting this time. I bought this delightful green, teal, depending on the lighting, floral cotton because I just saw it and I was enamoured. So I bought that, and when I got it I knew it was going to be a dress. I just knew. The design that I've come up with this time is a little bit vintage inspired, so I've gone with a flounce skirt, and I did watch a closet historian video just to refresh my brain on how to do that because I'd seen it before, but I will link that so you can watch it and see someone do it properly. And for the top I've gone for a cutout and hopefully like a button front with a little overlap, and I'm hoping it's going to turn out really cute. I think it's going to be quite complicated to pattern in terms of compared to what I've done before, so hopefully it's not too bad. I'm going to use my all-in-one block for this one because I like using it. I like how the sleeves are, in that you don't have to set them and they look quite nice and they're all built in. And that's also a closet historian special. So I will absolutely link you to their channel because it is a gold mine, so definitely recommend if you aren't familiar, which would be baffling if you're here. But yeah, definitely check that out. I think in terms of the fabric, I've got 3.4 meters maybe. I think it's not quite 3.5, but hopefully that should be enough because it is quite narrow, so that potentially might cause me some trouble. But other than that, I think it should be okay, so fingers crossed. Let's just get to patterning and see where we end up because I've got a feeling this one's gonna take me a while to get the pattern made, so let's get to it. I started this pattern making process by tracing out my all-in-one bodice block and penciling in some probable places that would later become the seam lines. I then went over it to make it more visible, before marking 1 inch and 6 inches down from the neckline at the centre front. I then marked a point 4 inches up from the waist at the side seam to indicate where the seam for the lower bodice would be. I also marked ½ inch out from that point into the bodice before joining that to the mark 6 inches down on the centre front. I also marked 1 inch from the upper mark on the centre front, as I forgot to do that at the time. At the point that I wanted the cutout to start, I drew a line up to the lower mark towards the neck to become the bottom edge of the upper bodice piece. I then marked a point 2 inches from the neck along the shoulder seam to determine the neckline starting point before joining this around to the mark 1 inch down from the neck at the centre front. I then drew in the dart legs for the dart in the lower portion of the bodice, which I think began around 1 inch from the apex point. I then cut this out, smoothing the lines where I felt that it needed it. Before completely separating the upper and lower bodice pieces, I remember to draw an indication mark so that I can match them up later. I always forget to do this. After labelling the pieces, I then added 2 inch extensions to the centre front to allow for buttons or a zip later. With that done, the front bodice was complete. so I moved on to the back, starting by again tracing the block in pencil before going over it in felt to make it more visible. There wasn't as much to do on the back. I only needed to match up the neckline and add a lower bodice section. I did this by using the front pattern pieces to ensure the seams are the same length. I think I barely lowered the neckline at the centre back, less than ½ inch, and curved that around to meet the mark on the shoulder seam. I then marked a point down from the neckline for some reason that I have no recollection of before I decided to draw the back lower bodice piece straight across from the mark on the side seam, going straight through the dart. I then remove the dart from the lower piece by connecting the dart legs and taping them together, so that this can then be cut as one flat piece that will not need changes later. I also smoothed out the joins. I then went on to label the pattern pieces and the bodice was complete. At this stage I moved on to the skirt, again tracing the block and drawing it in pen. I added 2 inches to the centre front to allow for buttons or a zip, just like I did on the front bodice. I marked the hip indication point from the block and measured down to where I wanted the flounce to begin, connecting this point to the centre front and the placket that I added on. I then cut out the pieces and labelled them before moving on to the flounce. To make this, I first marked several points along the top of the flounce. I just kind of guessed at this, and I think that I should have done more in hindsight, and this would have given me a smoother piece to work with when I was cutting out the fabric. I then drew lines from these points to the bottom of the piece before cutting along them, leaving the very tips of the points connected. I then used some spare paper and spread the piece out so that the bottom edge was much wider than the top. I ended up making this around 1/4 of a circle or 90 degrees and used the paper to fill in the gaps, spreading the piece that I created. I kind of used the lines on my table to line this up, just to make it more even, but it was just a guess, so ultimately I don't think it mattered too much. I then cleaned up the edges and finished labelling that piece, before moving on and repeating this process for the back piece, minus adding the section for the buttons. And then all the patterning was done. I've laid the fabric out just to see, kind of get a rough estimate of whether or not I've got enough. And I've rearranged the room, so now I can actually fit 3 meters on the floor, which is delightful. But I'm unsure. Oh, this is the fabric. Look how cute it is. So cute. But yeah, it is quite narrow. It's, I think, only 110 centimeters or something close to it. So we may or may not be able to fit everything on it. I'm a bit concerned about the flounce. I'm not sure the flounce is going to fit. So I will have a check and see how we get on. Wish me luck. I've got the pieces sort of generally laid out. As you can see, one stroke of luck is the flounce looks like it'll fit, and I might actually be able to cut it as one piece rather than 2 separate ones. So, well, 3, because that would have a gap in the center front. So that's good. As you can see, I've kind of got, they've rolled. I need to flatten the pieces out. I need to give them an iron or something. You can see the general region, we've got the width we need, just about. But I only have this much fabric left, and this is not enough for a full lined bodice. So I've got this secondary piece. It's just a remnant of blue cotton. The colour works fairly well. It's hard to get a true colour on this, but the colour works fairly well together. They're much darker than they look on the camera. They do work fairly well together, so I'm thinking I could use that. I'm just trying to work out whether I need to line all of the bodice or if I can get away with just lining some of it, because I can probably use the original fabric for perhaps the lower bodice and then the remnant for the shoulder parts. But then maybe it would be better to have the top of it in the matching fabric and see if I can work that out. And if not, I'm probably going to have to come up with some sort of elaborate facing, because essentially my issue is this center front piece. I need to face it somehow, but then it joins together here with the lower part. So it would probably just be easier to do a full lining. So I'm going to have to ponder that for a bit. But I do have enough fabric in several parts, but yeah, at least we are going to get a dress out of this. So that is something. Also, the supervisor's come to visit. He's actually here to make sure I'm doing my job today. So maybe it'll go better. I feel like on my last project, he wasn't up here, and then I kept messing it up. So fingers crossed. I've just finished cutting out one of every piece from that. I think it was 3.3 meters of fabric. So it's just over 3 meters for definite. And this is what I've got left. It's mostly scraps, but I do have that single piece there that's a fully intact width of fabric. All I need to cut now, I decided to go for a facing for the front and the back neck, because that way I could get it from the scraps. And it's about a 3-inch facing, but I do need to cut out a second layer for the middle section, because I think that bit will do well from being a bit more structured. So I might even interface that. But I'm not sure if I want to break into this big piece or not, or use my extra fabric, because that is actually a remnant that I have no plans for, whereas this I could make something potentially to match with this dress, either like a little bag cover or maybe a tie for my hat, because I often, especially in the summer, wear a sun hat, so potentially I could make a tie for that, and I think that would be useful to have like a good sized piece of. So I need to figure that out so that I can get that last piece cut out. But yeah, I've just rough cut everything, mainly just to make sure that I could get every bit I needed out of it. And I will go in and mark the pieces up and get them cut up a little bit more. I think everything's got around about 1/2 inch seam allowance. I think I gave it on the skirt an extra, oh no, I did 1 inch at the side seams, which may or may not have caused me to end up with more scraps that aren't terribly usable for this. That I'll find some way to use them, I'm sure. But I did wanted to just give myself that extra bit of seam allowance in the sides, partially because I wasn't sure how I was finishing the seams yet, and partially just to give me more flexibility to make sure it fits well. And then it's also there if I ever need to let it out to make it fit a bit better in future. So I'd rather have the extra in the sides. But yeah, so I think I just need to figure that out with the midsection, and then I'll get all the pieces put away because I don't currently have a matching thread. I did go to the craft store and try to get a thread that matches this, but it's such a specific kind of brightness of tealy green that everything was either too green or too blue. So potentially what I might do is get a purple or a blue thread and have it as an accent thread, because my thought was to just maybe go with white thread. But if I pick out one of the more like the colours, it looks a little bit more deliberate. So I'll ponder that. I do have a piece of fabric that I just take with me. It's just a little offcut, and I take that with me just in my purse in case I do end up in somewhere that has thread. But yeah, so I think I'll have a look and see if they have something that matches one of those colours in the flowers, because I'm not having much luck with this colour. So yeah, I can't really start sewing it together until I have something to sew it together with. So fingers crossed I find something soon. Otherwise I'm just going to resort to white thread. I've just got the flounce ruffle lower part of the skirt out onto the fabric just so that I can do the final cut on it. And I do think that I'm going to put it together into one piece to cut it out, because it just kind of makes sense to me. Regardless of which way that I cut it, there's going to be wastage. Yeah, I think I'm just going to cut it like this and probably cut it a little bit narrower in the middle, just to smooth out the corners a little bit. There's a little bit of a sharp one, so I'll probably do that. And then that's all the pieces essentially rough cut or properly cut. I think I'm going to cut out the other parts when I'm marking all the darts and things, so just to really finalize all those seam allowances and the edges and stuff. I think essentially the outer edges are cut properly, whereas the middle joins, the waist, they still need to be trimmed down. But yeah, making good progress, I think. After the absolute time that I had with the skirt that I just made, I did decide to make a sort of guideline list of things that I need to do for this particular project, and I'm hoping that this is something that does actually help, so we will see. If it does, I will probably do it again. I spent about an hour, I think, just marking all the pattern pieces the other day, so they are all ready to go, and I am starting with the skirt. So yeah, plan is to just start by following this, sew the darts first, then put the side seams together, and then I'll give it a little try on and make sure it does actually fit reasonably well. Then see how I get on adding the flounce to it. Because when I picked that up after I cut it out, I was like, oh, this would make a very nice peplum. So I'm fighting with myself a little bit on my original plan, but I think I will keep it as the flounce because it will be far too short of a dress, I think, if I don't. So I will get on with that and see how that goes to start with. I've just done a little test because the last time I went to the craft store, I still couldn't find a thread that matched. Even the blue and the purple colours, I didn't have much luck with those specific shades without them seeming like they would stand out way too much. So I've tested a grey thread that I had, and I've got a white thread as well. And I'm leaning towards the grey. I did see, I can't remember, but I feel like I heard somewhere that if you don't have a matching colour, a grey can be quite a good option, which is why I thought to try it. And I do actually think that maybe it's the better choice for this because it doesn't stand out so much. I don't think I have a lot of external stitches that I need to have on this, but definitely it'll be for the buttonholes and places like that. Maybe some top stitching on the flounce and the waistband, or not waistband, the waist area. So I'm leaning towards the grey because I just think it doesn't stand out quite so much. And I think maybe that's what I want for this. I think I'll start with the white for the inside just because I've got more of that, and then see if I need the grey elsewhere. I'm not sure. I've got a white bobbin, so yeah, one of these two for sure. All my darts are sewn. My side seams are together for the skirt, and well, all the darts for the skirt are sewn. And I'm just about to bury my tails for my darts up into the darts themselves, which is just as simple as popping the ends through a sewing needle, and then you literally just sew those into the actual body of the dart, and that hides the ends and helps keep the dart secure. So I'm just going to do that for the 4 darts, and then I'm going to give this a try on and see how it's looking. I'm just hoping that I've given myself enough room to be able to sit down. I've just finished trying on the skirt, and the fit is fine at the waist, it's fine down the hips, and I just thought it was a little bit wide just above the knee, so I've decided to take in about 1 inch either side, so that'll be a total of 2 inches off the bottom. So I need to remember that for the pattern piece if I decide that that is the look that I want to be going for. And one thing I have found, I've just unpicked it because I don't know what I'm doing with my seam allowances yet, so I wanted to make sure that I have access to it. But I just unpicked it and it is scarring quite significantly. Hopefully you can see that. So I do need to be careful about where I'm putting my stitch in. It should come out with a good press, I think, but it's definitely something I need to pay attention to. I've just finished attaching the flounce to the skirt, and it's looking super cute. Loving it so far. I've just hung it up on the mannequin so that the flounce itself can do any dropping that it needs to do before I can level it out, and then I'll hem it. And then for the flounce, I did just do a French seam, which looks really nice and clean. We love that. So I'm just going to decide whether or not I want to stitch that seam down. It would mean visible stitching, so again that would be the dilemma between the grey and the white thread, but for now I can just leave it so that it can just relax and do its thing, and I can figure out whether or not I'm going to move on to the next thing or take a little break. So I did decide to move on to the bodice section, and it's gone pretty straightforward, I think, apart from this is all over the place. I need to turn it the right side out so I can go try it on. But the top section, let me get the picture, it's probably easier. So this section was so confusing because I couldn't work out which way was the top and which way was the bottom, so I think I need to make sure I mark that in future. It was just confusing. It might be because I'm kind of tired, but yeah, it was a bit confusing, and maybe I just need to label them and put a little arrow on it or something. But yeah, I'm gonna go try this on now. And the reason that I had to do the outer rather than test fitting on the lining is because I've done the facing. So because I've done the facing, I can't actually tell if it fully fits. So fingers crossed this is fine, and then all I need to do is sew up the lining and the facing and combine them, but if not, I need to do some alterations and we will see how that goes. I've constructed the outer for the bodice portion of the dress, and I've just finished trying it on, and I've discovered a problem that it's just a fit issue, which I kind of suspected. I knew it would happen in this top section, but I wasn't sure it was going to happen here. I didn't expect it to happen in the top of the bust. I've managed to come up with a fix where I've converted this dart into a princess seam. It's just extended up to the top, and that's taken enough out, and then any extra I can take out of this center front portion. And this one's just pinned. That's how I decided that I was gonna go for princess seam. So that has solved this issue, and then for this top section I will probably just do that once everything else is together, like once the bottom part is fixed and I try it on again, then I will work out what I need to do for that top section, because like I said, I knew it was gonna be a little too big, but I'm not sure quite how I need to adjust it. There's also a slight issue in that this is lower than I expected, so there's a little peak of underwear under there, which might not be a problem because generally I'll wear something underneath it, but it's not ideal. So I probably on the pattern need to extend that, and then I also need to amend the pattern piece to indicate the princess theme. So I'm going to sort out this other side print and turn it into a princess theme, and then hopefully try it on again and have a better result. I've tried that on and it does fit a lot better. The whole rest of the bodice fits absolutely fine. No problems with the sleeves or the top section, apart from the centre front bit, which that's solvable. I think I'll sort that out once everything else is all together. And yeah, I think, yeah, I just needed that little bit of length in that front section. I really didn't factor in quite how low that was. I just guessed it rather than actually doing any measures on my body. So note for next time, don't do that. Yeah, like I said, all the rest fits absolutely fine, no problem. So I'm just going to re-sew that, and then I'll start sewing up the lining. I think that's where it's going to be important to try and make sure that matches, but it's not the end of the world. It is on the inside, so I think it should be okay, and hopefully fairly easy to sort out. And then figure out what I'm going to do then. I'm not sure. Maybe that's where I stop for the night. I'm just about to attach the lining to the outer layer, and I'm just making sure to pay real close attention at the front edges where the kind of cutout section is, because in changing the darts to princess seams, I have adjusted where that section meets all together. So I'm just making sure that things still align. And possibly I should really be doing this by hand, but I'll probably hand stitch the lining to the skirt section. So I'm just gonna try and do it on the machine. And if there's any sections that give me trouble, I will hand stitch them in. The bodice is lined and I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. It is still a little wider at the cutout than is practical for the type of bra that I was wearing when I was testing the fit. But I think it'll be fine if I just wear like a little vest underneath. So that's fine. Forgive the fit on the mannequin. It looks like it is terrible, but the mannequin is only my kind of general approximate measurements as opposed to actually built like me. Something that I need to amend at some point, but yeah, I'm really happy with this so far. So what I think I'm going to do now is get the skirt attached, and then that will basically just leave the hems and the hand sewing to do. So I'll get the skirt on, and then I'm just going to leave that for the rest of the night. Then I'm going to pack up and maybe even head to bed. I'm not sure. I'm calling myself done for the night. It is in one piece. It fits differently on the mannequin than it fits on me. And I'm actually a bit surprised at quite how much altering I'm having to do to it. So that's been fun. I've taken in the skirt a little bit at the sides just because it was just a little bit baggy. It wasn't giving quite the silhouette that I was hoping for. And potentially I need to take it in some more, but I think what I'm going to do is leave it for the night, and then when I decide to sew again, maybe tomorrow, maybe after the weekend, not sure. But after that, then I will decide what I'm going to do. If I'm going to take the skirt in more, if I'm going to adjust anything else. I actually think that, so on me, this part is quite a lot further over, and I think I'm actually going to leave it further over. I'm going to have this button offset and then potentially just have some buttons down the front like I planned. But yeah, it's a little bit frustrating because I knew that I have a couple of issues with the block that I made because I made it a while back ago, but I think generally the items that I've been making, I think because I've been getting away with it in some ways, I hadn't noticed quite how off it is. And I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that this neckline is different, and normally I don't have a problem, especially with this all-in-one block. But at the minute it's taking some work to get it to fit properly. So I might have to have another look at my block soon. The skirt I know isn't a great fit, but I didn't make that block from scratch. I just used one from a sewing pattern that was kind of close enough, and so far it has been kind of close enough, but I think because I don't generally use it as a pencil skirt, yeah, maybe I need to make new blocks. And if not new blocks, just alter my blocks, because I think it is just tweaks. It's just like with the bust, I think I just need to take some more out of my dart, and I just need to rotate some of that out. I don't tend to make things that are high necked. It's not usually so much of an issue. But I think all that needs is to be rotated out into one of my other darts, which isn't a big deal. And as for the rest of it, it's generally kind of fine. I think it is just partially to do with my squishiness. It does make things a little bit awkward to fit. Yeah, lots to think about, and I think I'm gonna do that another day. It's definitely not going to be tonight. Just to add, because that was quite negative, I actually do like it. I think the fabric is so lovely, and I think it will turn out into a really nice dress. It's just I'm having trouble seeing it, and I think I'm just losing a bit of patience with it, so hence why I need to stop and hope that I can do something with it when I come back to it. But yeah, I do think it's going to be a lovely dress. I just need to get there. I just need the patience to get there. I've just tried the dress on after it being on mannequin jail for, I'm not sure how long, but maybe a week, maybe longer than a week. And I've decided, because I was basically back and forthing with myself on whether or not I wanted buttons or a zip for this, because obviously I'd planned for buttons, but it wasn't feeling like buttons were the right choice for it. So I've decided now to go with a zip, and I'm just now trying to decide which colour zip to use. So I've got these two coloured zips, like a lilac-y colour and then a pale blue, which kind of work with the floral in the print, because since I couldn't match the thread for the green teal colour for this dress, so I don't know why I thought I would just have a zip that would match it. So I decided that I would pick out one of the colours, and this is what my options are. And I'm leaning more towards this purpley colour, because I think it will add a bit of interest if you do see it. You likely won't see it because I'll probably do a lap zipper, but I think if you do, it's a nice little pop of colour. But then there is always the option of this kind of pale blue, although it's reading much paler, so I'm not sure if that will be too bright if it does show. But either way, we're going with a zip rather than buttons, because I want to. I've decided and I want to, so that's what we're doing. And then I think I'm just going to go for a little press stud, possibly two, one on either side, but potentially just one will hold them both up. So we'll see how that goes, but I think we'll do a little popper there, and then a zip down the centre front, and then all that will be left to do is sew down the lining, because that's still loose on the inside, hem the sleeves, hem the flounce, and tack down the facings. I think that will be it. It will be all done. So yeah, I'm gonna leave these on the mannequin. I think I'm just gonna put them on the dress and then just see how I settle with them, probably overnight. Anytime I come in here, I'll have a little look and see whether my opinion changes, but I think I am leaning towards sort of this one rather than this one. So yeah, we will decide on that. And then I need to decide what colour sewing thread I'm using, because I've still got the dilemma of not having matching thread. So given that there'll be a zip, there will be a line at least of visible stitching. So potentially what I will do, whenever I've picked the thread that I'm going to use, I'll probably end up machine sewing the hems on the sleeve and on the flounce, because then at least if we've got visible stitching, it'll be nice to kind of mirror it in other places just to make it feel a bit more deliberate. So that's the plan. Hopefully next time you see it, it will be completely done. So let's leave that, go get a drink, and see where we end up. really did turn into an endeavour. So that was a fun one. That one pushed me. But I'm so delighted with this dress. It's so cute. It's as cute as I had imagined it. It didn't quite turn out as intended. Obviously there's no buttons. I ended up just deciding to go with the zip. And so that did mean I needed to finagle some of my seam allowances in the front of the bodice. But given all the other finagling I'd had to do with the bodice, I think that was perfectly acceptable. Definitely need to work on my block, because this fit was really tricky to try and solve. The issues that I was having was really tricky to try and figure out. Honestly, I'm just glad that I've ended up with something that I can wear. It looks like I really need to work on my block, which is so frustrating. But yeah, hopefully the fit issues are just that I need an extra dart going up into the neck, which then I should be able to pivot round and just remove from that area. But yeah, I think I made my block nearly like 2 years ago maybe, and in that time I've moved house, I've had a lot of health related flare-ups, so clearly my body has changed a little bit. And also the undergarments that I'm wearing are newer than that time, so potentially that is part of the issue. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it doesn't quite, it's a little bit exposed. So maybe I'll have to put some trim or something on this just so that I can wear this, or wear a vest or a t-shirt underneath. But then that kind of removes the point of the cutout, so I'm sure I'll figure it out. I'm not too concerned about this level of bra showing. I'm sure it will be fine. But yeah, it looks like my block might be next on the agenda to rework. I did have to do a lot of taking in on the skirt as well, so potentially just using that pattern block doesn't work either. So it might be a full rework, which maybe I'll do a video. Maybe that will motivate me to do it. Let me know if you want to see. I am overall really happy with how it's turned out. I did have to make some executive decisions, so I ended up on the hem just using bias tape and then just machine sewing it. I had planned to hand sew it, but my wrist was just not allowing me to do so. So in the end I decided done was better than done perfectly how I would want to do it in an optimal circumstance. So yeah, either way I've ended up with a very lovely dress. It's very much as cute as I hoped it would be, and it does at least fit relatively well. I can sit, I can move around, it's not constricting in any way. I do need to figure out if I'm going to put a button on this top bit though. At the moment it's a brooch area. I could wear a brooch here, but I'm not really sure what I want to do about that, because obviously it was going to be a button, but that was when everything else was buttons. So I will sit with that one on the first time I wear it. I think that will help me decide. Hopefully that wasn't too chaotic, because it felt quite chaotic to me, but that's all I've got for this one. Thank you very much for watching. I don't know when I'll be back, but maybe it'll be with a block video. In the meantime, good luck with your own endeavours, and I will see you soon. Bye!